On Sunday afternoon, as Hurricane Irma unleashed destructive winds across South Florida, images of towering cranes were causing panic on social media. At two construction sites in Miami, crane booms, the long horizontal arms that carry loads and balance the structures, had collapsed, damaging the unfinished towers next to them and sending debris onto the city's empty streets. One appeared to have been bent, dangling perilously to the side. A similar incident was reported later at another construction site in nearby Fort Lauderdale. While developers and the contractors in charge of the cranes insisted that they had inspected and secured the structures ahead of Irma's arrival, exactly why the cranes failed remains unclear. The companies, along with city officials, are investigating the cause. What is apparent, however, is that the cranes collapsed under winds weaker than what they should have been able to endure. City officials said the roughly 24 cranes that dot Miami's developing hotspots are designed to withstand winds of up to 145 miles per hour. As Irma tracked to the west, the city saw gusts of up to 100 miles per hour. Nobody was injured in the incidents, which happened above deserted streets. Still, the crane failures reopened a debate about whether imposing stricter regulations are necessary, with Miami Mayor Thomas Regalado telling the Miami Herald that the city cannot gamble on the wind. Imposing tighter rules, though, could be a regulatory nightmare. Although Miami enforces codes and regulations on the construction and maintenance of buildings, cranes are regulated by the federal government, specifically the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. State law adds another layer of red tape. Florida statute preempts cities from enforcing laws regulating cranes, said Miami City Attorney Victoria Mendez. Rules vary in other states. New York City officials, for example, introduced new restrictions, including lowering the wind speed threshold needed for crews to secure cranes, after a crane fell onto a Manhattan street, killing one and injuring three others in early 2016. Still, some trade associations in Florida bristled at the mere mention of tighter regulations. The Associated Builders and Contractors says imposing new rules would be a knee-jerk reaction. It's premature to say anything because we don't know anything about what happened, said Peter Diga, the president of the trade group's local chapter, which once sued Miami-Dade County over a crane ordinance. It could have been a tornado. We simply don't know. It's possible that the operator made an error. We don't know if the equipment was actually put in the proper mode. There's a lot of facts that need to be investigated and answered before we say that standards are improper. Maurice Pons, deputy director of Miami's building department, said the city has ordered the contractors to stop construction work on the buildings where the cranes failed, and to remove the towering hazards. OSHA has also been notified, Pons said. Irma knocks at power to millions in Florida while residents begin returning to the Keys. The first crane to make the news Sunday is at a high-rise apartment building in downtown Miami. Its boom snapped, sending bricks to the ground, the Miami Herald reported. All three cranes that fell in Dade and Broward counties, one of which is ours, were all north of 300 feet in height. Ryan Shear, principal at Property Markets Group, the building's developer, wrote in an email to the Washington Post. We have limited data of the recorded wind speeds at that height at this time. While yes, the investigation is ongoing, at this time we have no evidence that the cranes failed to meet their expected wind capacity. Shear said preparations began 6 days before Irma made landfall on the Florida Keys. That included lowering the crane by about 40 feet, the maximum possible given the time restraint, inspecting it 3 days before the storm, removing all loose material and debris, and securing openings, entrances and other major equipment, he said. The brakes on the horizontal boom were also released, allowing it to spin freely. Dismantling and removing all the cranes in Miami would have been impossible to do before the storm hit, city officials and experts said. Only a handful of engineering companies are equipped to do so, and it takes anywhere from a week to 10 days to remove a single crane, they said. And a week ago, we were not even under a hurricane watch, not even a tropical storm watch, said Dan Whiteman, vice chairman of Coastal Construction, which is in charge of a dozen cranes in the Miami area. Lowering the cranes as much as possible, while a good safety precaution, would not have greatly mattered, Whiteman said. For example, His cranes were lowered by only about 20 feet and were either as high or higher than other cranes in the area when Irma hit. None of them failed. Experts said cranes are designed to move like weather vanes, meaning,